Have you ever transferred money into your savings account and then immediately checked the balance 5 more times just to make sure it's real? There's a moment when a 5-figure number in your account stops feeling like luck and starts feeling like proof. Proof that you actually did something most people never do. Most financial influencers will tell you that real freedom starts at 6 figures, or that you need to hit 1 million before anything meaningful changes. But they're skipping over the number that quietly rewires how you make every decision before you ever get close to 1 million. That number is $50,000. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to build wealth on autopilot while others feel stuck no matter how much they earn. If you're the kind of person who wants to actually understand the mechanics behind this, instead of just hoping your bank account magically fixes itself, hit subscribe and drop a thumbs up if this ends up shifting how you see money. Now, before we get into why $50,000 changes everything, let me ask you something. When you picture someone with real financial stability, what do you imagine? Maybe a guy in a nice suit closing deals. Maybe someone who inherited a chunk of change from a relative. Here's the truth. Most people who hit this milestone look completely ordinary. They still drive a normal car. They still shop at the same grocery store. The difference is invisible from the outside, but it's massive on the inside. Think about pushing a shopping cart with a bad wheel. At the start, every step is a fight. You're wrestling with it just to go in a straight line. But once you get some speed built up, the wheel stops fighting you so hard and the cart practically glides. $50,000 is that moment where the wheel stops fighting you. Everything before this point takes twice the effort for half the progress. Everything after it starts rolling on its own momentum. But here's the part that surprises people. It isn't really about the math. It's not just that bigger numbers make bigger returns, although that's part of it. The real shift happens in your nervous system. When you have little to no savings, your brain treats every financial decision like a threat. You take the job you hate because you can't risk unemployment. You stay quiet about a toxic landlord because moving feels impossible. You say yes to overtime you don't want because you can't say no to the money. This isn't weakness. It's your brain doing exactly what it's designed to do when resources are scarce, prioritizing short-term survival over long-term growth. Something changes once you cross the $50,000 mark, though. Suddenly, your brain isn't scanning for threats anymore. It has room to ask better questions. Instead of, how do I get through this month? You start asking, how do I make the next 5 years count? Research on financial well-being has consistently shown that each additional buffer of savings reduces measurable stress hormones, and the effect compounds the longer that buffer exists. Somewhere around the $50,000 mark, most people report feeling genuinely calm about money for the first time in their adult life. Not because their income changed, but because their sense of control did. Let's talk about the math, because this is where it gets exciting. Say you're saving $1,500 a month and earning an 8% average return. Getting to your first $50,000 from zero takes roughly 2.5 years of steady contributions. That's not a quick win. That's grinding through months where the account barely seems to move. But here's the part that will mess with your head a little. Getting from $50,000 to $100,000 doesn't take another 2.5 years. It takes closer to 20 months. Same monthly contribution, same return rate, same effort on your part, but you shave off nearly a year just because your existing money is now working alongside you. By the time you're pushing from $200,000 to $250,000, that same $50,000 jump happens in under a year. The math doesn't change. Your effort doesn't change. Your money just starts doing more of the heavy lifting every single time. People assume the wealthy have access to secret investment strategies unavailable to everyone else. At the ultra high end, sure, there are some exclusive doors. But that's not what's driving this. The real secret is embarrassingly simple. It's the same math, just working on a bigger pile of money. A 10% return on $2,000 gets you $200. Fine, but not exciting. A 10% return on $50,000 gets you $5,000. That's not pocket change anymore. That's a number that starts changing how seriously you take your investment account. Here's what most people miss completely, though. Saving your first $50,000 isn't really about the money sitting in the account. It's about what saving that much proves about you. Think about what it actually takes to get there from nothing. You had to track your spending. You had to say no to things you wanted more than once. You had to keep showing up to that habit for years, not weeks. And somewhere in that process, You prove to yourself that you can control money instead of letting it control you. That identity shift changes everything downstream. Before you had this kind of cushion, a surprise $600 repair bill might have wrecked your entire month. After you cross $50,000, that same bill is annoying, but it's not a crisis. Your car needs work? Fine. You handle it and move on. Rent goes up? You have room to negotiate or room to walk away and find something better. You start noticing opportunities you would have scrolled right past before. A friend needs a small investor for their business. A rental property comes up that needs work but has real upside. A certification course could boost your income but costs a few $1,000s up front. Before, these were fantasies. Now they're decisions you can actually run the numbers on. This is also where your relationship with your job completely flips. When you have nothing saved, you're stuck negotiating from fear. You can't push back on unreasonable demands because you need that paycheck more than they need you. But $50,000 gives you what I call real walking away money. Not quit tomorrow and never work again money, but I could leave this job and be completely fine for 6 months to a year money. And here's the wild part. Most people never actually use it. Just knowing it's there changes how you carry yourself. You ask for the raise because the worst outcome is a no, and you're still fine either way. You stop over-explaining your PTO requests. You take on the ambitious project because failure isn't catastrophic anymore. People notice this shift in confidence, and confidence tends to get rewarded with exactly the kind of opportunities that speed up your next $50,000. Now here's where people mess this up constantly, and I mean constantly. They finally hit this milestone, feel that rush of security, and immediately blow a chunk of it. Maybe it's a new truck because they finally deserve it. Maybe it's an expensive vacation to celebrate. Maybe it becomes a down payment on a house that stretches them thin the moment they move in. Don't do this. That $50,000 isn't a reward. It's the base layer of your entire financial future. It's the difference between decades of financial stress and a life where money quietly works in the background while you focus on things that actually matter. Consider this. The average American spends more on cars over a lifetime than it would take to reach real financial independence. Between payments, insurance, gas, and maintenance, most people are burning $700 to $900 a month just on transportation. Stretch that across a few decades, and you're easily looking at $300,000 or more, money that evaporated instead of compounded. Meanwhile, the same person will say they can't possibly afford to invest. It's like refusing to water a plant while wondering why it never grows. Here's the thing about crossing $50,000 that changes how you view big purchases forever. You stop asking, can I afford the monthly payment, and start asking, what does this actually cost me in opportunity? That $40,000 truck isn't just $40,000. Invested instead, over 20 years at an 8% return, that same money could grow to well over $180,000. Suddenly, the reliable used car in your driveway doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like a decision that's quietly funding your future. And there's an odd kind of irony that shows up here. The person driving the brand new truck is often stressed about the payment every single month. The person driving the 10-year-old sedan with $50,000 quietly growing in the background is sleeping just fine. Nobody can tell the difference just by looking at either one of them in a parking lot, but their financial trajectories couldn't be more different. This mindset eventually spreads into every corner of your spending. Housing, vacations, hobbies, even the little stuff. Not in a way that drains the joy out of life, but in a way that makes you intentional instead of automatic. You start realizing you don't actually want half the things you thought you wanted. That bigger apartment sounds nice until you weigh it against 3 extra years of working a job you don't love. That expensive hobby is fun, sure, but there might be a version that costs 1/10 as much and gives you just as much satisfaction. None of this means becoming obsessive about every dollar. It's the opposite, actually. Once you've built this foundation, you stop sweating the small stuff completely. Buying the name brand cereal or grabbing coffee out isn't a moral failing anymore. Your energy goes toward the decisions that actually move the needle: where you live, how much you invest, what you do for work, not whether you should feel guilty about a $4 latte. $50,000 won't make you rich by itself. But it's the point where you stop reacting to your financial life and start designing it. It's the difference between money controlling your choices and you finally controlling your money. Start building toward it now, because the version of you 5 years from now is already counting on the decision you make today.